Earlier this month, I had the privilege of going to Argentina with Al and Donna to help Lois, Kenny, and Loida, and the Morel family and the West family with some construction projects that were going underway there. Right now, the Morel family is focused on the ministry of the camp and outreach to the children of the local community, as well as setting up retreats for marrieds and men's and women's and different kinds of that for spiritual development. The West family is going to be using the same location that we were at in the next couple of years to start a seminary, so they can start actually training up more local pastors right there in Argentina for Argentina and some of the surrounding countries. So with that being said, the work down there is very important. And there's a lot of work left to be done. Here's a little bit of the progress of what we've done so far. Of course, we flew in during the night times. It's a long flight, and I couldn't help but take. It was working. Yeah. Hey, you're very lucky. That is a very good picture to have. It's loaded. There we go. And here is the picture of us flying into Buenos Aires at night. There was literally lights as far as the eye could see. It's a huge city. And one of the reasons that's so important, I think, is because, well, that's Buenos Aires. That's where GMSA is kind of based out of Argentina. There's still, among all those lights, only about 3 or 4 churches that actually preach the gospel. There's about 12 churches that this camp is going to be servicing for retreats and things like that spread over the whole country of Argentina. That's 12 churches out of this whole nation. So there's a big need for the gospel to be shared. It's really big on Catholicism is the big religion down there. As you can see, our accommodations were quite comfortable. We had, because there's only the 3 of us, we had our own rooms. Al and Don had a room, and I had my own room. So with our own private bathroom, so it was probably more comfortable than most short-term mission trips that people here have probably been on. I cannot say that I was disappointed. Here's some of the work that we did. I don't know how well you can see, but you see they have styrofoam walls with wired grates over top of it. That's how they build their walls. And then they spray concrete over them, which you can see in that middle section up there. Some of the concrete they spray about 3 coats of it on there, and they smooth it out. And that's their walls. So, for the first couple of days, Al and I were mixing a lot of concrete, while we had a young guy from Florida named Jared was running the wheelbarrow back and forth, helping. And James Morel, the missionary in charge of the camp, was spraying the concrete on the walls. And here's just a picture of what it looks like when they do a full wall. It still needed its final coat, but it was a work in progress when we were down there. And here's how they actually spray it on. It's kind of dark, but he's got a concrete sprayer hooked up to an air compressor. I'd never seen one of those before. I thought it was interesting, so I threw it up there for you to see. As you can see, when we first went in there was nothing in the ceiling except for the main support beam. And while we were there, we put in the rafters. And we also put in all the scrapping, so the duct work that we're going to talk about in a minute can be put up, and they can also hang the drywall for the ceilings. We did this in 3 rooms as well as 3 bathrooms. Al was our woodman, cutting the wood for us, which saved me and James a lot of time of having to go up and down ladders because Tom what we need to get it for us. We also assembled a bunch of ductwork for the HVAC system. It was not as easy as ductwork in the U.S. Things were measured close, not perfect, and let's say close is not always easy to work with. And as you can see in this picture, there's a lot of ducks that we had to put together. There was even more. We had to actually close it up into the final piece and then put them all together. And then Al helped James get the condenser put in place and get the duct work in place. We got all the ducts for one half of this building in place, and the other half of the building we had mostly assembled when we left. They did not have the condenser yet. That was all good. As I said, we got a lot of work accomplished while we were there. There's a whole lot more left to be done. But for me, some of the best moments were actually there in the local church. The people there were very welcoming, very loving. They're very grateful for us to be there. So often when I think about the local church, when I think about the church in general, I think about Cedar Creek. When I think about people in heaven, I think about the people who went on before us. You know, Mr. Sprinkle, Mr. Coon, and on. So often we forget that there is a whole world of Christians out there loving and serving the same God that we are. So that was very eye-opening for me to see the importance of missions firsthand by being down there. And now I am going to let Alan Donna talk for a minute.
As you can see, everybody was busy. I didn't do any of that kind of work. That's too hard for me, for an old lady like me. So what I did is I organized. I organized the kitchen. I organized the sheets, pillows, everything that had to be organized was given into my hands. And that took a couple of days to get all that straightened out. Then he decided that there were some chairs that needed to be washed. Now, did you ever wash chairs? It took me about 4 days to get 230 chairs washed, cleaned, and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I spent a lot of my time doing. They also had some curtains that needed to be cleaned. So who do you suppose did the curtains? That's right. I got some water, I got some salt, I got some bleach, and I washed. And then there were some strings on those curtains. I don't know who did it, but I had to straighten it out. So that's how I spent my time. You know, those were little things that needed to be done. And I'm thankful that I was able to do those little things that let these men do the big things. And I thank the Lord for the opportunity He gave me to go and serve Him by serving the people in Argentina.
He wanted to put this picture on because I was not able to walk much on that ground without killing my feet. And so they had a tractor there and a trailer to haul the equipment from the garage over to the building. And so I was the official tractor driver. Yes. And I'll say that in Argentina, one of the things that I enjoyed was working with James and what's the boy's name? Jared. And it was not easy work, but it was enjoyable work. Only we went to church, and I didn't understand the word they were saying because I don't understand or speak Spanish. I don't understand and speak English too well. But sometimes I know what I'm talking about, but trying to tell other people what you're trying to talk about is another thing, because we have different words for different things. Working on the HVAC, we didn't get it all done, and like you said, the measurements sometimes were close. They were all metric, and some of the measurements were 2 centimeters off. And how are you going to put 2 centimeter things together? you have to be very, what do you call it?
Creative.
And we were creative. I'm just going to share one thing. On the way down, you have to have a passport, you have to go through customs, you have to go through security. And our first security, Donna's carry-on did not pass. So they took her little suitcase, put it over on a table. They had us come, and he said, "Now there's nothing in there that's going to hurt me when I open this, is there?" I said, "I don't think so. We didn't plan it." But you know what didn't pass? He picked all through that suitcase, and he found her wind-up alarm clock. That, he said, and he was so interested in it, there was another person that said, "Look, no time clock." So he put it back in the suitcase, zipped it up, and said, "You can go." But that was interesting. And the only thing that I'm planning on, I'd like to plan on going back and finish my job. And we'll talk about that this afternoon.
We'll be talking about that here in just another couple seconds, too. For me, the biggest impact, bear with me here, I sometimes stutter when I get a little anxious, and this is that time. The pastors are well aware, I have been struggling with post-traumatic stress disorder for the last couple of years. Along with that comes anxiety, depression, and things like that. The VA has labeled me unemployable, the Veterans Affairs Department. That makes you feel awful when someone tells you you're useless. But when I was down there, Pastor Dave, the pastor of the church, as well as another young lady who was down there, mentioned to us how grateful they were that we were down there, because so many times they wonder what they can do for God. And yet here was Americans coming down and working for God as an example to them. I saw one of my VA doctors on Friday, and thankfully she appears to at least have some religious background. She said to me, so we're talking about this trip and how good of an experience it was for me, and she said to me that unemployable is a nasty term. I may be unemployable in man's eyes, but I'm not unemployable in God's eyes. Amen. And there is still work that I can do and a benefit that I can be. That was the big takeaway for me, is that I can still be useful. And that was a big learning experience for me. It was an eye-opener. It made me feel a whole lot better about my current situation. I now look at my situation as God's providence, God's provision for me to free up my time to be able to do stuff like this. But we don't even have to go to Argentina to serve God. We can do it right here too. I know quite often we have work days. I know that sometimes Mr. Graves needs an extra hand around the building. I know there are various, I think the cleaning ministry is actually hurting for people right now. There's work that we can do for God here. We don't necessarily have to go there. And one of the biggest takeaways, while I was down there, learning more about what I can do here to help. So that was my big growth point while I was down there. Now, I don't know if you all can read this. I can barely read it from here, so probably not. But there is another work week coming up from October 4th through the 18th, 2-week period. As I said, there's a whole lot more work to be done. There's a whole lot more concrete to be mixed and sprayed. There's a whole lot more roofing and HVAC work to be done. There's a pool to be finished. there's a lot of work to be done. If you're interested in going back again, contact me, contact Mr. Cross, let us know that you're interested. I'll be talking with the Missions Committee briefly this evening to talk about this opportunity as well. And if anyone has any questions about the trip, questions about what they can do, now's your time. I know we only had about 15 minutes, and I think we've about used that, but I think if there's one or two quick questions, I could probably field them. I see, oh, yes.
What was the weather down there?
The weather down there was not bad. I say it wasn't bad. The Hashies will argue with me on this. The mornings, it did get to freezing at night. In the mornings, it was 35 to 45. And it got up to the mid-50s during the daytime. It's winter down there. Anything else? All right. Again, if you have any other questions about this, feel free to contact me after the service, talk to me. We'll be happy to share more about this.